Buckle up, everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into something pretty electrifying, the electric vehicle revolution that's happening in China.
Yeah.
We're going to break down how China became the world's EV leader and what that means for all of us, basically.
Right.
Um, and I know you shared a fascinating article with me recently about this, so let's dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting story that's unfolding. And, the headline figures just remarkable. Nearly 1 in 3 new cars sold in China is electric.
Really?
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. 1 in 3.
Wow. Yeah, you walk into a dealership, I'm imagining. More
Exactly.
EVs than gas-powered vehicles.
I mean, that's the kind of scale we're talking about. Yeah.
That's incredible. What is driving this incredible growth?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing it's not just one thing.
No, you're absolutely right. It's a whole combination of factors. And I think the first one that we have to talk about is the government's role. They've really taken a top-down approach to electrifying their transportation sector, and they've done it in a couple of ways.
Right.
First of all, the emission standards are some of the strictest in the world,
Yeah.
which makes it much harder for traditional gas guzzlers to compete.
And can you give us a sense of how strict are we talking? Like,
Yeah, well, I think one way to put it into perspective is to look at a city like Beijing.
okay.
So if you buy a new gas-powered car in Beijing today, the regulations are so tight that it emits on average about 80% less pollutants than a comparable car sold in Europe.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's a significant difference.
Yeah.
And it's not just about those emission standards, right?
Yeah.
They've also gone a step further and introduced some really enticing financial incentives.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this. Is it really as generous as it sounds?
I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay.
So on average, buying an EV in China can save you anywhere between $3,000 to $8,000,
What?
depending on the model. And that's through a combination of tax breaks and direct subsidies.
What?
And it makes a huge difference when you're comparing the price of an EV to a traditional gas-powered car.
Yeah, almost like they're penalizing you for not going electric at this point.
I think there's an element of that, yeah.
Wow. Okay. But it's not just about government policy, is it? I mean, China is also like a manufacturing powerhouse, so what role does that play?
Yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate the importance of that, right?
Yeah.
They've really cultivated this vibrant domestic EV industry with companies like BYD, Nio, Xpeng. These are names that are now becoming increasingly global.
Yeah.
And they're not just assembling cars, they're actually innovating at a really remarkable pace. And, they're putting a lot of pressure on those traditional international players.
Yeah, I've even heard that some are saying that these domestic companies are becoming, more innovative than the international brands.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I think there are definitely signs of that. And one example that comes to mind is BYD.
Okay.
They've developed their own battery technology. It's called the Blade battery. And it's really interesting because it's known for its safety, and it's got really high energy density, which means you can go further on a single charge. And they're not just keeping this to themselves, they're actually supplying these batteries to other car manufacturers, including Tesla.
Wow. Okay, so you've got this kind of perfect storm.
Yeah.
You've got the government support. You've got this booming domestic industry. But there must be more to it, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think the third piece of the puzzle, and this is something that often gets overlooked, is infrastructure.
Right.
So imagine you buy an electric car, but you have to constantly worry about where you're going to charge it.
Right. Yeah. Range anxiety, the big.
Exactly. That's a huge psychological barrier and a practical barrier.
Yeah.
But China has addressed this head on. They've invested massively in charging infrastructure.
Okay.
And I think it's worth emphasizing that they haven't just focused on major cities. They've rolled this out across the country, including rural areas.
So give us a sense of how extensive is this network? How many charging stations are we talking?
Yeah, well, it's remarkable because in China, you're actually statistically more likely to find a public charging station than a gas station.
Really?
They have over 1 million public chargers installed across the country.
1 million.
It's an incredible number, and it really shows that they're taking this seriously.
Wow. That's really impressive. But I've also heard something about battery swapping stations in China. Is that part of this whole infrastructure push?
Yeah, it is, and it's a really fascinating approach because instead of waiting for your car to charge, you can actually drive into a station
Right.
and swap out your depleted battery for a fully charged one.
Oh, wow.
And it takes just minutes. It's like changing a gas tank, but for electric vehicles.
Yeah, it sounds almost too good to be true. Is it really that seamless?
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming increasingly seamless.
Wow.
Companies like Nio are really leading the charge.
Mm.
No pun intended there. And their battery swap stations can handle thousands of swaps per day. And it really addresses that issue of charging time, which I think for a lot of people is a major concern when they're thinking about making the switch to an electric vehicle.
Yeah, right. So everyone else is worried about where to charge and how long it's going to take. And China's saying, here you go. You can just swap it out. It's done in a couple minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like magic.
It's a whole different mindset.
Wow. So it's affordable. It's convenient. It's backed by this impressive technology. It seems like China has really cracked the code to this whole mass EV adoption. But why should the rest of the world care about what's happening over there?
That's a great question. And I think it's important to emphasize that this isn't just about selling cars.
Right.
This is about shaping the future of transportation on a global scale. China's dominance in the EV market has huge implications for everybody.
Yeah. So what are some of the potential ripple effects that we might see as a result of this?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is for those traditional automakers.
Hmm.
They can no longer afford to treat EVs as just like a niche market.
Right.
If they don't accelerate their EV strategies, they really risk being left behind in what is the largest and fastest growing automotive market in the world.
Wow. And what about the environmental impact of all of this? I mean, that's got to be a factor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the potential silver linings here.
Yeah.
The rapid adoption of EVs in China could have a significant impact on reducing global carbon emissions.
Right.
And I think if this model is adopted elsewhere, that impact could be even greater.
Wow. So it sounds like we're at a real pivotal moment here, and China's really in the driver's seat.
Quite true.
Literally.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. So what's the main takeaway here? What do you want our listener to walk away with after listening to this deep dive?
I think the key insight here is the sheer speed and scale of China's EV boom. It's really a testament to their commitment. It's a clear signal that the future of transportation is electric. And I think the question now is, how will the rest of the world respond?
Yeah, that's a great point to ponder. I mean, given China's progress, will other countries need to, step up their game to stay competitive in this market? What does this mean for the future of transportation in, our own countries? How can we make sure that we're not just passengers in this EV revolution, but active participants shaping its direction? I mean, these are all really important questions to think about as we watch this China EV journey unfold. Thanks for diving into this with me today. This has been really eye-opening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's it for our deep dive into China's EV revolution. Be sure to check back in for more fascinating deep dives in the future.
See you next time.